Bobby, are you with us?
He said he was calling in on Zoom. Is Emily
So I'll start by saying my name is Commissioner Ken Bell, and I am the acting chair today because Commissioner Briscoe is fishing. I'll leave that alone.
We don't have Bobby yet, so Carrie, yeah.
And I'll start by discussing maybe let's go to the advisory committee meetings. While we wait for Commissioner Briscoe. Mr. Hogan, what happened to your Broncos?
We don't like to talk about that in Plate Company, Commissioner.
Trust me, I feel your pain. So can you move that? So the advisory committee meetings are the Marine Advisory Committee, the MAC, is November 8th at 6 p.m., the Harbor Center Building Conference Room on Roeder Avenue. And that is an in-person meeting only, no Zoom availability. The BIAC, the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee meeting, has no more meetings for 2022. You've got the rest of the year off. And if there were a meeting, it would be Zoom only, but you'd be alone. With that being said, Commissioner Briscoe,
I'm here.
Commissioner Shepard,
I'm here.
Commissioner Bell is here. All commissioners accounted for.
Commissioner, I think you need to close the executive session.
And I will now close the executive session and open the public meeting. All right. We will start with public comment. Anybody here wishing to speak to the commission on anything on this agenda or not on this agenda, you have a period of time now to go to the microphone. We've got about 3 minutes each. If you would like to all speak, feel free, and we'd love to hear from you. Anybody in the room? You're just going to sit there and look at us. Anybody online? Would you just raise your hand and make us aware of your presence? I don't see anyone. If you do want to say something, please speak up.
I think it's all staff.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And the first thing I'm going to do is ask if we could take item D off and explain a little bit about what that board mill extension looks like. I think in light of the extensions we granted Harcourt, I think a little bit more public exposure as to why we're going about that is important. So I'm going to pull item D. Commissioner Briscoe, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Shepard?
Nope.
So I'm going to ask that we approve all the items but D and then bring that up at the end.
Okay.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C and E.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is a yes. And we understand entirely what is going on with the modification of the lease agreement with the board mill group, but would like to just do a little bit of discussion about what the need is for that additional time.
Yep. Why don't we do that next?
Hi, Terry.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Leahy, Property Manager. Yes, the extension that's being requested, the original ENA, Exclusive Negotiated Agreement, was done in August 9th of this year for a 30-day period. The intent was to allow the board mill group to do site due diligence, get some financing in place, and work through the city requirements for that area to see what can be built and finalize the design. They have moved forward considerably, looking at different financing options. have already taken soil samples, checked the piling underneath the board mill building to see its current conditions, and have also met with the city. However, not enough time to finalize the design and to get the financing in place. This extension would allow them just over another 90 days through at the end of February of next year to complete the design and come back to the commission with their proposal.
Any questions, Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Commissioner Shepard?
No questions.
And you don't see any difficulty in accomplishing all those tasks within the next 3 months?
They're moving full speed ahead. They have different parties within the group assigned, taking care of the different aspects of the project. So,
And you're
yes.
happy with the progress?
Yes, very happy.
Okay. Carrie?
Motion to approve consent agenda item D.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes.
Thank you.
Consent agenda done. We will now move to our presentations. My favorite time of year. Love to hear a budget discussion. Tamara, what do our Q3 financials look like?
They look great.
Do they?
They really do.
Do you have a joke?
I don't.
Maybe we need to put that on the next consent agenda, Commissioner Bell. Got to have a joke before that
Okay,
presentation.
noted.
You think?
Joke. Tamara Sobczak, CFO, Port of Bellingham. So what we have today are Q3 financials as well as a budget update, just a summary of staff's proposed 2023 budget. It'll be pretty high level as we went through pretty much detail a couple weeks ago. So we'll start with the housekeeping items. The stormwater program is in compliance, both training and record keeping, but we had no rain event in Q3, so no monitoring, obviously, and we'll pick that back up in this quarter. Safety report, not as good of news. We did have 6 incidents. 3 were minor accidents with no time loss, 2 COVID illnesses, and then 1 hearing loss. And that hearing loss was something that was progressing over time, and we were monitoring it, and now it's just reached that reportable threshold. Job-related, yes. Public records requests, we've had 111 so far to date. That's taken well over 400 staff hours to fulfill. The good news is we've closed 2 major requests last quarter, and we only have 3 major requests open. So the rest of them are more minor, just this document, that document.
Of the 111, can you categorize them? Is there one specific topic that's dominating?
A lot of bid documents. Yeah, that would be the majority, I think.
Related to?
Just contracts that we let out, yeah.
And the bid documents are fairly easy to process.
They are,
The
yep.
information is there. So when we get requests for every email from Rob Fix for the last 10 years, that's where it gets really tricky.
That falls in my major request category.
Do we have any major requests outstanding?
We have 3, yes.
3 major?
We do. Yep. One of them, in fact, we're estimating it's going to take 3 years to fulfill.
Can you fill us in on the nature of that one?
I know, that's crazy. All contracts from 2015 to 2022, including all amendments and all documents related.
Who from?
I actually don't have that information, but I can get it really easily.
Public information?
Yes.
I would love to know.
Okay.
Who's going to take up that much staff time? And why? What are the other 2?
Let's see. Gosh, I can't even read my own writing.
You want some glasses?
I might need to. Port and Harcourt communications since 2013. And broadband PUD related emails.
Oh, I wonder who that's from.
Yes.
All right, thank you, John.
Yeah, good guess. Okay, so moving to the financial information, this is what our balance sheet looks like. 9 months ago, we were looking at total assets of $410 million. We've increased that substantially to $417. Our total liabilities have decreased a little bit as we pay down debt. And we've gained about $8 million in net assets, going from $268 million to $276. So again, a strong balance sheet. Our current investments are here. We have about $10.5 million in federal securities, and those are earning about 2% interest, which is far better than I talked about 3 months ago. And the balance is in our LGIP, earning about 2.5% at this time. So moving on to the kind of the meat of this. So I've got 2 slides for every category. This first slide is year-to-date versus budget, so looking backward the last 9 months. So this is a port-wide slide. We budgeted $19.9 million in revenues and came in at 22.3, so better than expected. And then our expenses, we budgeted 17.5 and came in at 17.1 port-wide. Now this is looking forward, same category, port-wide. So in 2022, we've budgeted $26.5 million, and then next year we're expecting or budgeting for $30 million in revenues. And then expenses are going to be a little higher as well as expected, going from 23.4 to 24.9. So we can drill into those a little bit. And again, this is, we'll look backwards and then we'll look forward. So this is 9 months of aviation. Came in well over budget because obviously we had budgeted very conservatively, not knowing what air traffic was going to do. And what this does not include are those FAA rescue grants. So this is just airport revenues. Came in at $5.2 million over a 3.1 budget, and then expenses just barely over budget, maybe 4%. And looking forward at the airports, 2022 budgeted $4.1 million, and we're budgeting 2023 $5.7 million, but based on what we've done so far in 2022, I think this is a little bit conservative. I expect to do better than that.
How does that compare to 2019 numbers? Do you know?
I believe we are either approaching or passing pre-pandemic levels.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2023 budget assumes a little higher expenses. As you can imagine, running an active airport versus a not active airport is more expensive. As flight increases, we'll have to add ARF staff, janitorial, things like that. And then heading over to the marinas, looking backward, revenues came in at $7.6 million over a $7 million budget. But again, this is, the summer seasonals are in here, so I expect it to even out a little better by the end of the year. And then expenses came in really tracking to budget. And looking forward, we're expecting occupancy rates to stay full in both harbors next year, going from 9.3 to 10.3 in revenues. And then expenses, we're expecting, and you'll see this kind of trend, we're expecting expenses to go up quite a bit next year for various reasons. This one, we talked about we're going to add security, ramp up repairs and maintenance, utility costs are going up. So all these operating divisions, you're going to kind of see this theme. At the Bellingham Cruise Terminal, there's really nothing for me to report to the commission. I just have to add it. I don't want to skip it, but it's tracking to budget, revenues, and expenses.
And your expenses actually went down? Oh, no, I'm sorry, they went up.
This is
This
this year.
Yeah.
Backwards, yeah. And looking forward, going up. But still tracking very, very consistent. And the shipping terminal, so the revenues don't look great, but that's because it's seasonal, and in the fall we pick up. And I've been told that we do expect to meet our revenue projections. And then expenses are tracking as planned.
This is through September,
Yes,
and we're going to do $600,000 worth of revenue in the fourth quarter at the shipping terminal?
that's what I'm told. I mean, I don't know those numbers, but he said we're going to track to budget. So we'll see. So looking forward at the shipping terminal, we're budgeting a little bit more. I understand the ROC activity is through September of 2024, so we're expecting the entire year again for that. And then obviously expenses are going to go up. We're adding a staff person to this department. We're going to see additional longshore labor, garbage, other items, just with activity. Real estate is kind of the same as the cruise terminal, high occupancy, it is what it is. Expenses are coming in as expected, and revenues are 3% of budget. And then looking forward for the real estate department, looking at a little bit of an increase in revenues, and that's due to just contractual increases with the leases dictate. And then the budget increases a bit. Again, we're going to add a staff person to this department. Again, utility costs are going up, all of that.
Are we tracking CPI on our lease rates? Or are we set, are most of them set?
I don't know that.
Some of our leases are set and very few are on CPI.
So looking at our overhead, this is pretty steady. Expenses are within 2% of budget. And then looking forward, we're looking to increase this, our overhead a little bit. We're going to add a staff to the finance department. Software maintenance is going up, and just increases in most line items. And then heading to the waterfront district, revenues came in as expected, and expenses also nothing glaring. Most line items are a little under budget, and they've just kind of added up to make it look well under budget, but no one line item.
So you're saying we left $58,000 of pump track money on the table?
Okay, looking forward to next year. I think I have the mic. Okay, so looking forward to next year. We're expecting revenues similar to 2022, and then expenses a little bit higher. Again, utilities, the container village, we're going to add garbage and janitorial and things like that. So that's where those are coming from. And then all other public, that's meetings and events, economic development. Revenues are coming a little higher than we expected, which means that we're renting out our meeting space regularly. And then, we budget according to the best information at the time. So all other public includes a lot of outside service, consulting and legal and whatever, if we need it, but we just haven't spent that. So that's good news. And then looking forward, we're looking at mostly the meeting space for revenue, looking at the same level as 2022. And then expenses, this is just really inflationary pressures, nothing big. So that's it for the financial piece. Were there any other questions or comments you had for that? No? Okay. So looking at the 2023 draft budget, tax revenues, I know we discussed this at our budget retreat. We're looking at an increase in base tax of 1%, and tax on new construction, we will take that. Assessed value continues to increase. I actually am attending a meeting with or a webinar, Zoom meeting, whatever, with the county assessor, and she's going to talk about assessed value, so I'll know more next week. But I got my statement in the mail, and they went up quite a bit, so that means our rate will decrease significantly.
So just to recap on that last slide, we'll actually be charging a lower effective rate to individual homeowners, but due to growth and increased property values, we'll be getting a small percentage more money.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, they'll be paying a tiny bit more. Just their values are so much higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't planning on going through the entire capital budget for 2023. We did that, I think, a pretty good job at our retreat, but I just wanted to reiterate the top 10 projects that are going to begin next year, and they are significant. So we have the Blaine Industrial Area land improvements. We have 2 of those coming in at $12.5 million. Oh, and I'll mention anything noted in blue is what we've earmarked to fund with a bond issue. So these are land projects that would not generate any revenue. So we've got the industrial area, FMIP. We have quite a bit of work at the shipping terminal, the waterfront road development, and additional dredging at the waterway. We have a bulkhead. We have some fender piles at the MCI Pier. And then we have a warehouse 9 to demolish at the Fairhaven Shipyard. So just a quick visual on where these new capital projects for 2023 are coming from. Those land projects really are infrastructure, but I've just categorized them as real estate just to show. So it's mainly our land projects and then waterfront and then public projects after that. So our projected cash flow for 2023, we expect to start the year with $31 million, and that's unallocated. So, projects that we've allocated money to that are in progress, that's not part of this. We assume that they've been spent. So this is in addition to that. Sources of cash, $105 million. That includes that $33 million estimated bond issue. Uses of cash, $114, leaves us with $22 million at the end of the year. Subtract the required reserve, and then we end up with $13 million at the end of 2023. So a balanced budget as projected. So next steps. So I expect to get the draft budget on the website on Monday. And then at our November 1st meeting, we'll have a public hearing. And then at our November 15th, we'll have a second public hearing, and we'll ask the commission to approve the final budget then. So the only thing I wanted to ask the commission about this is, so at our public hearing, I don't normally go through an entire budget presentation again, maybe just the changes that maybe we've heard from the or we hear tonight, if there are any, or if we hear any public comments before the meeting, I would present that, but otherwise, a pretty just basic public hearing, if that's what the commission would like.
Commissioner Shepard, any comments?
Is that how we normally do this?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that seems fine to me.
But if you wanted additional detail, I'm just happy to provide that as well.
Okay, sounds fine to me.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I'm good. Good with that.
Yeah, my only comment is just don't automatically assume that I'm a yes on the 1% increase.
Okay.
I just saw enough in there you're going to need to convince me that that needs to happen.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to call me. I'm just saying I need to be convinced.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Other than that,
I mean, I can try to do that,
okay, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, Nickel, you're up for capital project updates.
You have a joke?
Do I have a joke?
Sense of humor.
I do think it's worth pointing out
Well, I'm
the
an engineer,
entire
so-
engineering team is here, though. We haven't seen that for a long time.
As much backup as I could get. But my joke is, two men walk into a bar, the third one ducks.
Tamara.
Before we do this, can we just introduce ourselves? Because I don't think the commission has necessarily met all of you. So if you just step up to the mic and embarrass yourself for a couple seconds.
And you're kind of intimidating because you're just staring at us.
Good afternoon. My name's Alex Strand, and I'm a project manager in the engineering department.
Alec is with us for the second run. So you were here and then went to the PUD, went to the dark side, and then we brought him back to the...
That's right. I've spent 10 years in Ferndale, and I'm back down on the waterfront now, so thank you. Larry Skolton, senior project engineer.
Larry's another one that came from the dark side. He was at the city of Bellingham.
And WashDOT.
And WashDOT. We like WashDOT. We like the city, too.
Igor Casco, another project engineer, and I came from State Parks over here. So.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Chapman, project engineer. Still. I'll tell you a joke. You know how I could tell that there's a train behind me? Because of all the tracks.
Way too many engineering neurons in the room for my blood.
You should see our staff meetings.
I'll bet that's riveting television. Greg, let's go.
Greg Nickel, Engineering Program Manager. Since we're getting close to finalizing the budget for 2023, it seems like a good time to provide an update on the projects that we're working on in 2022. So I was going to start off with just a few statistics of the projects that we've been working on, and then do kind of a highlight reel of some of the bigger and more visible projects that you may have seen around or have been asked about. And I'm going to hit them very high level, but feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions, make comments, jokes, whatever you feel the need to do. So just starting off, the engineering department in 2022 has been involved with 106 capital projects. This year we've completed 36 of those. 29 of them are currently in design, 30 are currently in construction, and 11 are in the planning phase. Of the 30 that are in construction, we're projecting that 23 of those will be completed by the end of the year. So we'll start with some work out at the airport. We've been actually quite busy out at the airport, largely with FAA-funded projects on the air side. So we have 4 primary projects, the runway safety area and taxi lane Kilo, both of which are 100% grant funded by FAA. And then the snow removal equipment building and taxi lane Foxtrot were funded at 90% by FAA. So just going through each one of those briefly, the runway safety area, this is actually a project that's been going on for far too long, and we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. The northeast corner of the runway safety area at the north end of the runway had a couple of compliance issues. First, there was a small portion of that property that was not owned by the port. That's because it was within the right-of-way of I-5. We have since procured that piece of property, and so we're in compliance there. The second issue is that the northern taxiway or runway safety area didn't meet grade requirements. There are maximum slopes that are allowed within the runway safety area, and that area was too steep. So we have a capital project to correct that deficiency. In order to regrade that area, we needed to build a retaining wall, which you can see in this drawing in the upper left corner that follows the perimeter of the runway safety area. And then at the bottom, you can see the completed retaining wall. And then we were able to regrade the area that was out of compliance. We also took the opportunity to construct a vehicle service road that follows the fence line of the aircraft operations area to improve security inspections along that fence line. We anticipate completing construction of that project in November of this year. At this point, we really only have a few stormwater improvements to complete to achieve substantial completion. The second project is Taxi Lane Kilo. That's located near the Aircraft Rescue Firefighting Building. And what that is that we constructed a new taxi lane that runs from Taxiway Alpha out to Williamson Way. And that taxi lane will serve both the Alpha Air Park development, which if you've been out there, they've constructed some massive hangars. That's a private development. But this taxi lane will serve that, as well as any future development that may occur beyond Williamson Way. And the upper left corner, you can see this is the work to construct the taxiway. It's a concrete taxiway, 14 inches of concrete underlain by 8 inches of asphalt, so it's a very robust taxiway. And then on the right, you can see the completed taxiway. We completed construction of that in July of this year. We only have some minor punch list items to complete for that project. Then the snow removal equipment building. This is a project to construct a prefabricated metal building, which you can see a picture of in the upper left corner. It's going to house the airport's snow removal equipment. We're also doing some site development to construct an access road. We have a very large piece of snow removal equipment that the only way we could get it into that building is to construct a new access road. So that's what this access road is for. And then the upper right shows a picture of the current status of construction. Right now, we're at effectively hole in the ground stage. We expect to complete the below grade work this fall and then start vertical construction of the building in the winter of this year, with construction completion in early third quarter of 2023. Taxi lane Foxtrot. So the airport has 4 taxi lanes that connect the runway to taxi lane Alpha. And those are currently angled high-speed taxiways that have been identified as a safety concern due to potential for runway incursions. And so this project is replacing one of those taxi lanes, the southernmost taxi lane. You can see the southern taxi lane here, and the new taxi lane that we replaced it with is this one right here. It was quite a challenging construction project because we didn't do any runway closures aside from the daily closures from midnight to 5. And so we had 5-hour windows to construct, as well as keeping the runway safety area in compliance. So it was quite the challenge. And then you can see on the right side the completed taxi lane. We anticipate completing construction of that later this month. Moving on from the airport onto a habitat restoration project. The Little Squalicum Beach Habitat Restoration Project is located just to the north of Mount Baker Plywood. This is a 100% grant-funded project, and the intent of the project is to provide habitat restoration for forage fish. This area also has a long history of industrial fill as well as some wood waste disposal, and so this project was intended to correct those issues. You can also see that the shoreline was not very fish friendly prior to construction. It was primarily concrete and asphalt debris that was used to anchor that shoreline. We're nearly complete with construction, and you can see quite the before and after picture. That we have the habitat area as well as a reinforced shoreline, and a side effect of a very nice area to go for a sunset.
Have you managed to keep an additional pump track from finding its way to that?
I think that's phase 3.
It turned out really nice. The beach is impressive when you get down there.
I can see a jump right.
It's really cool.
At high tide, you can jump into the bay.
58,000?
Okay, moving on. So Kayak Washdown Station, it's not a very big project, but one I wanted to highlight because it was a really good example of collaboration between the engineering department and the maintenance department. This was designed by engineering and constructed by maintenance, so it was done entirely in-house. It's located at Marine Park, and it's a facility that's quite simple. I mean, it's effectively 2 saddles that you can set your kayak on with a washdown hose with an automatic turn-off to prevent people from leaving the water running. But we've had really good positive feedback from the kayaking community. We've had multiple emails saying how much they like it. So it's been a very successful project, and one that I'm quite proud of because of how we built it. And then I felt like I would be remiss not to mention the container arch. I think we all know about this project, but it's turned into a fantastic entrance into the container village and the next step in developing that area. We also demolished a couple of buildings this year. The first one being the compressor building, which is a building that's located near the corner of 1000F warehouse. And it was used to house the compressors that supplied air to the aerators in the aerated stabilization basin. You can see the progress of construction. in the upper left, and then the bottom middle was taken about 2 days ago. That building is now gone and the site's been regraded. And then the upper right corner is an artifact that was salvaged from the building and is now being stored over near the alcohol plant for potential reuse at future developments. We also salvaged one of the compressors, which is a fairly unique looking piece of equipment if you ever find yourself over there. The second building is right behind there, is FMIP 8. Thank you. There it is. FMIP 8, which is a vacant structure that we've now demolished, and the area is now available for redevelopment. And then every year we do a paving and striping project, which is usually just pothole filling and restriping. But there was a couple of projects that I thought were somewhat noteworthy. The first being repaving of Schultz Drive. If you ever remember driving that, it's more pothole than road, but it's now a brand new section of asphalt that's much more pleasant to access from Seaview. The second one is that we completed repaving of the promenade. If you walked it about 1.5 years ago, you noticed that it was in need of some repavement, and so we did a grind and overlay on that entire walkway. So that's all I have. We did complete quite a number of other projects that I didn't touch on here, and if you have any questions about any of those or any of the ones that we talked about, we're happy to have any questions, and I brought the entire engineering team to help me answer any questions.
Commissioners, if I can just add on to this, we struggled, obviously everyone struggled during COVID to get projects done for a number of reasons, supply chain, et cetera, permitting, all that. This is a relatively new team of engineers. I think Matt's probably the oldest guy for longevity on the team, and you're what, 2 years into this? Yeah, so pretty young team. They're knocking it out of the park. They've got so many projects done this year, and you're seeing the results of them. They're high quality work, so a big thank you to them for their work.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, I just want to, say again, but that Squalicum Park project, I think it's going to just really be a dynamite opportunity for the community to thoroughly enjoy a great section of beach there that, was pretty tucked away and pretty small and had all that riprap. I know the last time I went down there, I was navigating between a rusty, dangerous pipe that was sticking out of the ground and then all the huge piece of concrete. It wasn't super friendly, and it was a major difference when I was there last week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a project that's got both environmental benefits and benefits to the public. It's turned out better than I was expecting. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we may need to address the parking lot at some time because I think it's going to be popular.
My understanding is there's a second phase, but I would have to defer to Kurt Baumgarten, who I don't think is here today, on what that second phase looks like.
Okay, great. No, I mean, we can see we're busy. We're, from both this presentation and Tamara's, we're doing a lot. We're adding staff to accommodate it, which costs money and is a good investment. And we have a really fantastic team, and it really shows when we see all these projects come forward. So, thank you guys. Nice work.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, well, you guys, once again, I'd like to reiterate that the Port of staff at the Port of Bellingham has done the exemplary job throughout the pandemic, as they did before and as they will do after. We got a great team here, and we strive to get things done, and that's important in today's world. We can talk about, a lot of people talk about it, a lot of people dream about it, but to see is the example shown that the Port of Bellingham is getting things done. I'd like to thank the staff and our executive director.
Thank you.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just out of curiosity, Sunil, how many times have we used that snow removal piece of equipment that we're building a building for? Just rough numbers within a.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. You're talking about the multitasking unit. It's about 54 feet long. We've used it last winter.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, it can clear the runway, taxiways in about 3 hours. So it's a great piece of equipment. But the facility is designed for all of the federally funded equipment. So it's more than that. With the sweepers and snow blowers and other pieces of equipment.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Anybody ever taken you up on that offer to look at that compressor?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case.
So you're not going?
And then the last thing on Squalicum, I too am pleased because the amount of needles and the number of, I mean, it didn't feel safe to go down there in that area. So we've just completely changed the paradigm. So these are all great projects, and would like to thank all of you guys. Do you allow women engineers into your club? Just out of curiosity, do you?
Unfortunately, we had a woman engineer on staff. No, sorry, we had a woman engineer on staff, and she moved on.
That's not going to replay well. No, thank you for all your work. You guys do an amazing job. So thank you for what we were able to accomplish this year. Okay, I have nothing else. Other business. Commissioner Briscoe?
I have none.
Commissioner Shepard? We will go to public comment about 5 o'clock or when the meeting's over.
Yeah, I was just going to have, Rob was going to give an update on our last meeting with the county council and discussing broadband.
So let's talk about broadband fiber. As the commission's aware, we've got about $10 million worth of federal money in grants and matching county money and some state money to get the first phase done. We went to the county to ask for a match for other federal funds that are coming available, we believe in November. We made a presentation to them about our IRUs, talked about the first IRU and how we've got the second one under negotiation. The common theme or question that came up from two of the county councilmen was that they don't like the turning over they don't have a problem with the IRU model, but they don't like turning over the asset to the private sector at the end of 25 years. They want the port or some other government entity to continue ownership of that asset. It was suggested by one of the county council members that they were going to make a requirement that if they gave the grant money or the match money for this grant, that the port would have to own that after 25 years. I think that would be a huge mistake, and the reason it would be a huge mistake is we can't guarantee that. This is a negotiation with other parties. It's not our decision to make. We have to convince either PogoZone, who we have our existing IRU with, or one of the new companies, Wave, or some of these other companies, that would be the right thing to do, and they want ownership of that fiber at the end. That's their incentive for doing the deal. So if that's a requirement, I'm not sure the port should even go for the grant, because I think we would get awarded that grant and we wouldn't be able to do anything with it. So it'd be a big waste of our time and a waste of the grant money we tie up. So we have some work to do with the county council. Gina did a great job of writing out some responses to some of their questions that we weren't quite prepared for at that meeting. So we're going to get that in the hands of all the county council members. We're going to set up some meetings with some of the county council members that ask the most questions individually and try and help them understand that this is a negotiation. It's not just a given that we get what we want. We've negotiated these agreements. We think we're pretty good at negotiating them. We've compared them to the Port of Whitman, which has been negotiating these for the past 10 plus years, and our agreements are very similar to theirs. So we've got some work to do here, but I'm comfortable we'll get it done and we'll get that match dollars, because there's a significant amount of federal money coming available in November to do what we're calling phase 2 and 3 of our broadband work. And Commissioner Shepard, you're on that if I missed anything there.
Yeah, I want to, thank the team. Gina was able to present on a lot of the great work that's happening right now. We're connecting homes to fiber as we speak, and there's going to be, in the next year, several thousand homes that will get connected, which is a really big win. And we've been leveraging dollars. When we bring in money, we turn, it's like a 10-to-1 leverage that we've been seeing with these grant resources, while connecting people who have really been asking for this service and waiting for this service for quite some time. So I think everybody felt good about that. There's some questions about moving forward for this next funding package. It is a substantially larger build-out in a more contiguous route. You know, right now we've been doing some piecemeal patches of lane fiber in some very underserved areas. This next one would be a more contiguous route, which I think provides some opportunity for these questions from the county council. I've asked Rob to think about the potential of, instead of just having a guarantee for us to purchase, to work in some right of first refusal language so that it might meet kind of some of our objectives while also addressing what the county council has asked us to look into. So I think we're going to get there. The money that's coming up is not going to come up again necessarily, and I think we would look back and feel like we've missed out if we didn't give it our all to get there. So I think I'm pretty confident we've got good members working on this who can hammer out the details, and we'll keep doing our work.
Commissioner Briscoe, do you have any questions? Were you done?
Yeah,
No.
I'm done with
I'm
I think that's it for broadband. And I guess just my last statement is, I think, you know, one of the other things the county council is going to help us in moving forward is if we are ensuring that we are demonstrating that the project team members are working well together. And so that's continuing to put emphasis on that partnership that we have with the PUD, that we're utilizing the skills in both departments to do this work together. And I think that really makes our application stronger, and we're going to have a better product for it in the long run. Done.
So it's the funding for this public sector only, or can the private sector access those funds if they decide to go into an area?
It's worked kind of both ways. Some of them have allowed the private sector to come in and essentially bid an area. Where the private sector has seen its most success is coming in and objecting to a grant going to a public sector entity saying they're going to go into an area. So someone like Comcast comes in and said, no, we're going to already serve, or we plan to serve those guys, and then our grant is less likely to be awarded. We score worse under that scenario. And that's where the private sector has been really effective at kind of keeping us out of that market.
And have they been following through on their commitment to build out that area once they object to our?
They tell you they have.
What do you think?
No, not even close. No, they're playing games. They're saying one thing to the broadband office and doing something completely different. Yeah, it's a problem, and we need to work on it legislatively with our legislators so that they can tell the broadband office, don't allow this to happen.
And we are open access, which means anybody can tap into that line. Now, functionally, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
You got to have people willing to put the service on there, but we are open to all comers. Absolutely. For 25 years, we will be open to all comers.
And there are some companies that won't work under those conditions, correct?
Correct.
They have to own it. There's no open access available.
Comcast being one of them.
And that's one of our requirements.
Yes.
Correct. And yet those are the ones that are objecting.
For sure.
To stop us from being in the marketplace. So they're essentially trying to create a monopoly, right? Is that your take?
That's my take.
Just making sure that I understood it completely. That's my take too. All right, and are we doing?
I would say they're not just trying to; they already have one.
They're being effective.
So they're just trying to reinforce it because it's already in effect.
Yeah. So stay the course is mine.
I think so. Yeah. I really don't think the port wants to own a 25-year-old piece of fiber. I don't think it has a lot of value after 25 years, and we're finding that out when we're looking at the stuff that's out there today, and it's 25 years old, and it's worthless.
Well, there's maintenance.
Well, there's absolutely maintenance. And it's not just on the fiber, and this is where I didn't do a very good job of articulating with the county council, because I think they're looking at it as a strand of glass, and there's equipment all up and down that line, and that equipment does not have a 25-year life. It has a 5-year life. So you're replacing that equipment over and over through the life of that IRU. And the way we structured these IRUs, it's the POGO zones or the Stowns that are doing that replacement of the equipment, not us. And that's why I don't think they're just going to turn that over to you at the end of 25 years. They spent a lot of money maintaining that network. They're not just going to give it to you.
Yeah, there was also a perception that they could actually lay this fiber cheaper than anybody else could because they were already out there doing road work. but that seems to be a bit disjointed because you'd have to be in the right place at the right time doing the right project. Is that?
Well, but there's a lot of truth to that because a lot of this isn't going to be in the ground. It's going to be hung on poles. And they already have pole attachment agreements with Puget Sound Energy and et cetera, right? They already have those in place. So they can go a lot faster than we can because we don't have those in place.
Any feel for how our relationship is with the PUD and the county at the moment?
I think we have a great relationship with the PUD, and I think we have a good relationship with the county. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions with the county, and I think there's maybe some, we didn't do a good enough job communicating with them prior to this meeting. In hindsight, I can always second guess, and if I could do it over again, I'd sit down with every county council member over the last month and make sure they understood the model. And the model's been accepted by the port industry, and it's been accepted by the broadband industry. And when you start trying to change that standard model, it's really hard to do.
Any other questions?
Not on broadband, no.
Oh, do you have others?
For other business, let's get an update on the shipping terminal. What's going on down there?
No one here to do that because they're all down at the shipping terminal.
Oh, my thunder.
Yeah, we've got a ship. The ship came in on Saturday night, about midnight-ish. They started loading it on Sunday. Interesting way that they load it is it's all scrap metal, obviously. They took the really fine scrap that they had and they put it in first to create kind of a bed or a soft mattress for the bigger stuff to be dropped in later. And I think that's where they're at now. They're starting to move on to some of the bigger scrap. But you're seeing those big piles get moved out, loaded on the ship. The grapples are incredible. If you've seen the grapples down there, big red grapples. Each one of those grapples has a diesel engine in it. That's how big they are. So pretty impressive operation. The trucks are moving the scrap from the log pond area to the ship. Ship's gear, the 4 cranes on the ship then take that from where it's rested and put it into the hull of the ship. And then there's some being trucked down from Marine Drive as well. They expect to wrap up by later this week.
Okay. And how are we monitoring for noise so we can understand how this is impacting the community?
Yes, sir, we are. We ordered up noise monitoring because we had some concerns as they were bringing barges in. A lot of the scrap came in on barge, was offloaded, and then set into the log pond area. And we had some noise complaints during that time. So knowing that the 5-6 days it takes to load this ship would be the noisiest, we ordered up some noise monitoring equipment. And as soon as this loadout's done, we'll start analyzing that work and figure out how we go forward if they exceeded the allotted noise amounts.
Okay. Well, it's good to see the harbor.
Dave Warder raised his hand.
Oh, good.
Hey, Dave, go ahead and unmute
Dave,
yourself and chime in and tell me what I said
Good evening,
wrong.
Commissioners. Dave Warder, Port of Bellingham. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Perfect. I just wanted to let you know I was online. We are over here at the shipping terminal coming to you live. Just wrapped up the day shift right now, and Rob kind of summarized kind of what's going on. Currently, there's about 10,000 metric tons on board the ship. The goal is around 23,000 metric tons. So we're kind of approaching that halfway mark. The longshoremen are doing a fabulous job. And to address your question, Commissioner Shepard, about the noise study, I did get a preliminary report from the folks that did that monitoring Sunday night into Monday morning. And we are well under the city ordinance noise levels. There's a couple spikes here and there, but none of those have crossed over that threshold. I don't have the report. Will come to us later this week. But that's kind of where that's at.
And you said that was, sorry, Dave, to interrupt, but you said that was Sunday night's readings?
Sunday night into Monday morning, and that was when we really started. We were moving the shred, which is a little quieter, but we were definitely moving the heavier material that entire night shift into 3 in the morning. So, and all those were well under is what the words were from the consultant, the noise restrictions for Bellingham.
Well, we'll look for the update for the Monday night. Monday afternoon to Monday evening shift.
Yeah, it's the same material. So I was here last night as well, into this morning, and it was the same material. So I don't anticipate there'll be any difference.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update. And as I understand, we expect to see about 5 of these vessels a year. for similar purpose. And just for the context of anyone who's listening, this shipping terminal was once very active, but for nearly 20 years it's been had very little activity. And so these are activity that doesn't just ship goods, it provides important jobs for community members, union households throughout this community. And so we are going to continue to monitor how we can be a good neighbor while there is activity down there, and recognize the important job and economic benefits at the same time.
Commissioner Briscoe, you have any comments?
No, good job, Dave. Keep things moving.
Also, a shout out to Chris. Thanks for the work on this, Chris, if you're anywhere in the neighborhood. I also want to say that, quite frankly, having no activity on that for 20 years essentially set the quiet tone for the South Hill neighborhood. And if we'd been doing commerce there the entire time, this would have been an entirely different reaction. But to have nothing there for 2 decades and then suddenly have a ton of activity, and probably the noisiest kind we could possibly have, was probably a big shock value. But quite frankly, this is what jobs look like. This is what a working waterfront looks like. If you're going to live in a town with a working waterfront, this is what you got to expect. And I kind of want to put into perspective that with just that 10,000 metric tons of steel, they're approaching $2 million worth of commerce on that boat. If they fill it, it'll be between $4 and $5 million worth of raw steel on that. We have employed 100% of our local laborers union members who used to travel to Anacortes and beyond to get jobs. They are all now fully employed here locally, so they don't have to leave their homes and go anywhere but here. And they are now looking for more bodies to fill those jobs. So it's exactly what we had expected. We are getting great rent. We're putting a lot of people to work. I noticed that there were at least 3 repair trucks out there, so we're bringing money back into the community. So this job is doing exactly what we intended this shipping terminal to do, and I could not be more pleased. And for those of you on South Hill, I'm sorry, but we live in a port town, and we're going to try to make it better. We will have some buffers added over the next few years, but for now, just bear with us until we can get that in place. And so again, thanks for that. That's all I've got. If there's any public comment, I would love to hear it now. Anybody online or any of our engineers in the audience want to say something, feel free. Anybody online? Raise your hand. Okay, meeting adjourned.